This podcast is a member of the Place to Be Nation family. Visit us at placetobenation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world.
Welcome to the NBA Team Podcast. We are now in our Final Four, the NBA version of the Final Four. We are now in the conference finals for the East and the West, one being on NBC and the other being on ESPN/Disney, which is kind of new, kind of old, a mixture of the same. But we have some nice meaty matchups to talk about, some big names, some superstars, hot teams that barely hung on to get there. A mix of everything, including maybe some spring cleaning with some of the transactions and speculation going on in between the league. I am one of your co-hosts, Andrew Riche. I am joined by Adam Murray. Adam, how did you feel about the conference semifinals, aka round? Let me give you some food for thought. Did you know in the NHL they don't call it the conference semis; they call it round two.
Yeah,
because they go by divisionals. So like the division winner plays the division runner up, I guess. So they go with that for the most part.
do they still reshuffle them?
I don't think they reshuffle them, but if the wild card team beats the divisional team, then obviously it kind of gets all thrown into a tizzy, you know.
I don't remember.
I've always called it the conference semis. Like even when I do abbreviations, when I write notes, I write ECS and WCS. Like that's how I've always known the second round. Like I feel like there's something special to getting to the second round of a playoff series. Have you felt that way? Like if a franchise gets to round two, like that's a pretty good accomplishment. You didn't get to the conference finals, but I know that's been a bugaboo that's been a bugaboo obviously for Philly, and that streak continued in very unceremonious fashion. But like second round's good if you're a franchise, I guess, huh?
I mean, not unless you're a certain general manager of a certain Philadelphia team, or
Daryl Morey got fired.
A head coach of a Minnesota basketball team.
Are you telling me something that I don't know?
No, we think he's safe, but there's big changes are coming. And it's just like, yep.
Yeah, well, I think people overlook into post-game pressers now because there's so many people that throw shade and they want to see if these players are going to try to influence decision-making in the summer with front offices. But I think Anthony Edwards said something to the degree of like, that's not for me to decide. I felt like that was a very simple answer. You know, it wasn't like, to me, it wasn't foreboding. Like, oh yeah, we got to do this. We got to do that. The Jamal Mosley thing, everyone knew that when they blew that series lead, he was getting fired. Everyone knew it, and it wasn't a surprise. I wonder if a lot of these, Adam, coaches haven't been hired yet by like the Bulls and the Pels. I wonder if they're waiting for some of these assistants on these playoff teams to finish up because they want to hire them.
I don't know who is it? Taylor Jenkins was going to.
Well, Jenkins coached previously in Milwaukee, so he had a relationship with John Horst, so that wasn't surprising.
But I don't know how quick he's going to do his staff, and I mean, no other coach has been hired yet, which is extremely
I know that there's been talk. I mean, the Pels haven't done it. It sounds like James Borrego is not gonna get retained because I don't even think he was on the supposed final list. But like, I wouldn't be surprised if they hired Mike Inori, who's the assistant in Minnesota, who just got eliminated by the Spurs. But what if Chris Finch, like you just speculate, what if Chris Finch gets fired and they just hire Nori as the head coach? They have to make that decision now before he takes an interview elsewhere. You know, it turns into that kind of a game.
Yeah.
Dave Bliss in Oklahoma City. He's got to wait till maybe the finals. We'll talk about that in this show of how we feel like that's going to go for OKC. But like, I think he's going to get a head coaching job.
Well, being the hot name only lasts for so long. Remember how Sam Cassell was the hot name for like a couple years, and then just
Charles Lee
disappeared. And well, Charles Lee got a job, and he did very well in Charlotte. And
yes,
but and then you had Patrick Ewing, who was like, I could be a coach. It's like maybe we should.
Well, Chicago's unique because I feel like that's more of like we're starting from scratch and we want to get a brand new, like almost like what Phoenix did with Jordan Ott, where they're like, look, we just want to start with scratch. We want a coach that'll listen to the players and that the players will listen to them, and they'll try to jazz up the offense, and that kind of thing. But we could talk about that a little bit when we get more clarity about that. Right now, we are down to 4 teams. Are you surprised by the 4 teams?
Not really, because technically, isn't that what we had said they would be? Or
these are all teams that went for
paper?
it. Yeah, these are all teams that went for it in the offseason.
Well,
they made
okay,
either in the offseason or in the midseason, they made big moves to try to get better.
Well, let's just start in the West.
Yes, let's start with the Western Conference Finals, sort of a heavyweight matchup, the Spurs and the Thunder. It's a matchup that practically everybody thought was going to happen when it became obvious that the Spurs and the Thunder were going to have top records. And they did. They had I actually think if you look at the numbers, they were the top 2 records in the entire league, right? I believe. Like, for example,
yes, they were
no matter who wins this in the West, they're going to get home court in the NBA Finals.
That's, we had said the West was so hard, but in the end, like, attrition really took it away. Denver just withered and was tired. Minnesota crumbled. Houston, you lose Durant, and there goes your season. Lakers were just injured to begin with, so it got a lot easier than expected.
I don't want to say that's what I was going to say. I don't want to say the Thunder had the red carpet rolled out for them, but they have not had I'll be very fair. They did not have the toughest road so far in the first 2 rounds. They are a great team. And you saw what the Lakers tried to do. They tried to influence the referees. You saw the whole thing where they had that consortium in the middle of the court of like, why we're not getting any calls and all this stuff. And the Thunder, guess what? The Thunder didn't really get any calls in the 2 games in LA. It didn't matter. You know why? They shot over 50% from the field. They didn't need free throws. So at the end of the day, the Thunder were just better. The Lakers bowed out and it was over. The Suns, the round before that, they were a sitting duck. But for the Spurs, the Blazers were a unique team, but we already talked about them in the previous playoff preview when we talked about the round before that they weren't really equipped to do anything against the Spurs, and it wasn't shocking that they beat them in 5 games. The Wolves are experienced. They had a good defense. They had a good game plan. They even won game 1 in San Antonio. I think what happened, and I know we're not talking about the Wolves in the conference. I just want to ask you. I felt like the Wolves kind of like got into their own heads. Like they got so obsessed with touching up and double teaming and zoning Wembanyama, they just forgot about San Antonio's guards, and they just decided, oh yeah, Fox and Castle, we're just gonna play them one-on-one. Well, that was stupid because they're gonna go off on you, and that's why they lost game 6.
Well, by then it was already, as you see the stories of everyone singling out Randall for giving up, and
you're telling me there's another post-mortem, everything that went wrong with this team, beat report that already came out for some. I am so sick of this where we have all this collateral that's given to some beat reporter about what's going on with this playoff team, and the moment the playoffs end and they lose, they just cannot wait to stir shit up about what went wrong and who's to blame and coach didn't do this. I am so sick of it. Like, can the players just take responsibility for not playing well?
No, I normally would say that. However, with, we'll say, Denver and Minnesota, they kept their team intact and sort of re-upped to run it back with these salary cap rules and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, of course you're going to have the drastic, things need to change. And the same thing in Philly as well.
Randall, let's be fair. Randall didn't play well. It's very fair to say. He didn't play well after game 1. But also, I felt like Minnesota's guards defensively, like, why is Mike Conley on the court? I'm being very honest. Like, this man is 40 years old or whatever. He's done.
Who's DiVincenzo?
He tore his
Achilles. Really just...
Ayo Dosunmu is an amazing offensive player. Defensively, if he's not touching up people, he's not effective. And he showed that. And he's a free agent, so we'll see what happens with him.
And they want him, but
Yeah.
That's for a different story. We're not talking Minnesota. We're talking Oklahoma
Right.
City and
But
San
San Antonio
Antonio.
pushed through. It was a good challenge for San Antonio. I said that when we previewed the matchup, and they did. It went 6 games. They blew them out in game 6 in Minnesota to finish it off. Now we get a matchup where if you look at the regular season matchup, and that doesn't always mean anything, that doesn't always translate in the playoffs. The Spurs basically have the Thunder's number. And it's going to be interesting because the Thunder have had very little tread on their tires going into this playoff run. Their first round, they had a first round sweep. They had a second round sweep. They didn't really have that much trepidation. There was no really internal issues. Jalen Williams supposedly is cleared. So he'll probably be ready by game 1. It's going to be interesting. So we should see full strength for both rosters, but what do you think the Spurs do that's effective outside of Wembanyama just being a freak?
Nothing really. I just continues just making it unexciting because they're healthy and they are ready to show about the same way of like we had SGA winning the MVP.
Second year in a row, yes.
Yeah, and everybody then you hear people like trying to talk about why other people shouldn't win. It's like, well, so we give it to the best player on the best team. Like, I wouldn't have agreed with it, but
yeah, Victor Wembanyama just won Defensive Player of the Year award unanimously. So I mean, I take that as pretty high praise, even though he didn't win MVP.
Yeah, but I don't see. This is where like San Antonio was at where Oklahoma City was a couple of years ago, and just you made it here. Well, now they're going to show you that you're not ready for the big time. As Minnesota sort of played them harder than expected.
Yeah, in the eyes of many, I felt like Minnesota could get in trouble just because they are a playoff warrior, no pun intended, type of team. Like when they get in the postseason, they seem to play their best, but the San Antonio I think they just out-talented them. They had just got more guards to throw at Minnesota. With Oklahoma City, they're not going to be able to throw all these guards at them to confuse them because they got AJ Mitchell has been playing really well in the first 2 rounds. You have Isaiah Joe, you have Caruso lurking around, getting ready to pick somebody's pocket. Stephon Castle is having great games, but he's also still having turnover issues. I'll say this though about San Antonio: their defense is about the same when Wembanyama's on the floor as it was in the regular season, which is good for them. But their offense is actually playing better than it did in the regular season. So I want to say the only problem is the Thunder's offense in the first 2 rounds against the Suns and the Lakers is molten hot. They actually have almost better numbers offensively than the Knicks do. And the Knicks are like, everybody's unanimous about, oh man, they're basically like John Wooden's UCLA Bruins. They can't be stopped. Well, the Thunder's offensive numbers are almost the same, if not better. So you wonder defensively who is going to make the other crack first, because they both have elite defenses.
So what is your prediction on this one?
I think it's going to go 7. I think the Thunder will win because of the home court. The thing that's going to be very important, and we've seen a lot of complaining from coaches across the board. It's not Adam. It's not just Chris Finch, and it's not just JV Bick. It's all of them. They're all crying for calls. I really want to see how Wembanyama is officiated. How much is Oklahoma City going to be allowed to touch up the Spurs guards? And whether or not the Thunder can get to the free throw line if Wembanyama is playing zone defense and he's contesting shots and deflecting and all that stuff. I really am curious to see how the officiating goes from game to game with it. If it's high volume free throw shooting in this, it's going to be close, but I feel like San Antonio is going to have an advantage if it gets to a point where they just let it go, because I feel like San Antonio, they can run out a little quicker than Oklahoma City can. Oklahoma City's experience, I feel like, is the X factor here. Like the fact that they've done this, they've gone 7 games last year with the Nuggets. They went 7 games in the finals. They know how to play a very strong, stout opponent when they have to go the distance. San Antonio's never been there. They also don't have home court. And I think home court's been important for the Spurs. They've lost twice, but I don't think the Spurs can win in Oklahoma City twice. That's the problem.
Okay.
I mean, how do you feel about that? How do you feel about the series?
Think it's just going to be Oklahoma City and more unwatchable, like their first two series to an extent.
I don't think it's going to be domination, though. I really don't. Like, I think
there's a difference between domination and then just, oh yeah, they're ahead and they're going to stay ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I get that, but I just feel like there will be some tight. I am interested to see the matchups. Like, there's some that are highly predictable. SGA and Stephon Castle seems obvious unless they want to prevent Shea from getting in foul trouble because Castle's good at getting the free throw line, so they might cross it over, have Caruso guard him. Who guards Vassell? Keldon Johnson as a sixth man. You'd have to imagine him and AJ Mitchell might bump heads a couple of times. And Dylan Harper. Dylan Harper's a huge X factor too. I don't know if the Thunder have one guy that they can just peg of like, oh, Harper's in the game, then Daniel gets him to like guard Harper. That I don't think that's possible. So there's going to be some cross matching. There's going to be a lot of switching, and then it really just comes down to Victor. Like, what will the Thunder try to do to get easy baskets for themselves against that freaking 7'4" monster of a man in the middle? That's going to be the big discussion. And Shea's going to get his points. There's no doubt about that. He's going to dominate his matchup. He's going to get his 30 to 20 points like he always does. Can he avoid foul trouble? That's going to be the key. I know that. Do you feel like he's a flopper at this point in the playoffs?
Kind of.
Like, I know that's out there that he's a free throw merchant. He is. He gets he gets more free throws than anyone in the NBA other than Luka Doncic. But I do feel like I just wonder if the Spurs defense will be given grace in some of these games and they just let him play. I mean, I've seen less fouls called. I've seen a lot of scenarios in some of these playoff series where there are play-ons where I'm like, wow, I am not used to this. Like, I've been watching NBA over the last 5 years. When something like this happens and bodies are falling across the floor, there's a foul call, there's a whistle, and there's nothing. So, like, do you think the league is just enjoying this? Or like, look, we want WWE sometimes. We want to have a tussle here and there.
Nobody's going to be happy, and everybody's been complaining the entire
time.
But
but you can't doubt there's more physicality in these games than there were in the regular season.
If you call it too much, they'll complain. If you call it too little, they'll complain. There is absolutely no winning. And now we move over to the East. We just had what I think is another NBA self-inflicted wound by putting it on Game 7 of a deciding series on the web only. Thus,
it's fine with me. That's one where if it goes 7 games and schedule wise, it wound up, NBC has gotten into the habit where they start they have the Monday window. So the Spurs finished up and on Friday. So they had Spurs Thunder to start on Monday. And that means Tuesday is going to be, the Knicks and Cleveland. But the thing is, if that means that ABC doesn't get the game, and it goes to streaming, like, people are going to watch it anyway. Just because it's not on broadcast doesn't mean it's not going to get big numbers.
It's not about big numbers. It's about promoting your brand, which the brand has had tons of issues. But anywho,
I mean, Cleveland had a Game 7 at home against Toronto on NBC, and it was decent for a while. That game, actually, I think Toronto had the lead for a good portion of the first half, and then they just blew up in the third quarter and wiped the Raptors off the face of the earth. It wasn't a great game, and it was on NBC, and I didn't really care about the fact it's on me. I mean, when I'm watching the Cavs and the Pistons on Amazon, I'm not caring. I do like the fact that you got like Iron Eagle and all, Reggie Miller and then, but like the thing is, like, I don't really care what the carrier is. If I'm watching it, it is riveting. That's all that matters to me. But Cleveland has kept it riveting. They've gone 7 games twice, survived.
Well, that's what it is. We have the two teams that were built and literally paid to be in the finals, and then we have it. So Cleveland
And
still,
Cleveland was the most expensive team going into the season before they did the James Harden trade. So this is a team this was a win now team. We all know New York is a win. They're always a win now team when they're a playoff team. So that goes without saying. So this is sort of the urgent, the high urgency conference finals, whereas you got like the Thunder and the Spurs, and it's like, yeah, we got it made in the shade. We have all this young talent. We might be here forever. We all know that's not true anyways. But for the Cavs and the Knicks, it feels like, man, if one of these teams doesn't make the final, like they might just blow it all up, you know? I don't think that's the case, but there is high urgency. Would you agree?
there is high urgency, but I have to say New York still seems poised to just power through, because
Yeah.
the problem with Cleveland is just they've been so streaky. They were streaky from the get-go and they haven't figured it out.
Yeah. The thing for me, and defense has helped them. I know for James Harden, it's so weird because James Harden does things where he follows the exact script that everybody knows him for, where like in the big games, he chokes. But then in some of the bigger games, he hasn't choked. So like he's actually played well in some of them. And Donovan Mitchell has done the trade-off where some games he looks amazing. Like, didn't he have a game, Adam, where he scored 36 and a half in the second half? He scored 6 in one half, and then he scored either 36 or 37 in the second half. So this is the saga of Donovan Mitchell. You get an amazing player or you get nothing. And Harden is almost similar. He's much older now, but they did come through at the end. They did. You know, Mobley had good moments. Allen was sort of a disappearing act against Detroit, and I think he was a little outnumbered by Detroit's size. The Knicks have size. They like to play two bigs. And Karl Towns is basically doing his best impersonation of Nikola Jokic, where he's passing the ball a lot and getting a lot of assists. But they also have Mitchell Robinson, who absolutely hobbled Joel Embiid in the second round. I think the double big lineup will obviously give trouble to Cleveland again. The difference is Detroit turns the ball over. Their offense was a little rickety after Cade Cunningham, and they didn't know where they were going to get the offense. I remember one game where they were so desperate for a secondary score, Karis LeVert had to come off of the bench to try to give them points. For the New York Knickerbockers, that is not a problem. They have been pasting people. They didn't even have OG Anunoby in games 3 and 4, and it didn't matter. They just bring in Miles McBride, and he just hits open threes.
And that's why I agree with you. They're running on all cylinders, and Cleveland just needs to really shoot lights out. And then
do you feel like the Cavaliers have a Teflon defense, or do you think their defense is good? They just kind of like lose focus.
I don't know what's wrong with Cleveland.
Like they have games where they have even quarters where defensively they do well. They make big runs. They hit a ton of threes sometimes, and then they've had quarters where they just like give up like a 20-2 run. And you're like, what happened?
They've been like that all season.
Yeah,
like they remember how they started off before the Harden trade. It was just like, what is wrong with this team? They can't get anything straight, and all of a sudden, now they do. And then, how are you getting 2 7-game series? Like they can't.
Yeah, and then they just had dumb luck. You saw the thing with Dean Wade where he just slipped in the middle of the court on an out of bounds play. I mean, that's just dumb luck, you know.
Yeah,
things like that happen. But they came through and won. They won on the road twice. They won game 5 and game 7. That's not easy. And especially after they were kind of haunted by the fact that in the first round against Toronto, they didn't win a single road playoff game. They are on the road to start this one. The Knicks had a better record than Cleveland. I just get a sense for the Knicks is that I don't want to say they're on cloud 9 because that's how you set yourself up for failure in the playoffs. Like, oh yeah, we got it all figured out, and then the rug gets pulled out from under you. The Knicks, I feel like their offense is playing so well that the Knicks need to play against an elite defense in order to get a monkey wrench thrown into their wheels. And Cleveland cannot provide that defense. That's the biggest problem. Like I see the Knicks in 5 games.
Yeah, it would be nice if Cleveland was consistent, but the inconsistency, I think,
they're too inconsistent.
Will hurt them in the end.
I like Cleveland. I know people are a fan of how they run their offense. I think Kenny Atkinson's safe, by the way. Would you say the same if they get eliminated here?
then who's the problem?
Well,
The
I mean, James Harden. I mean, we have a whole gone fishing for that for Cleveland,
but
they
they
have he
got
has
rid
a
of
player option, and Don Mitchell can renegotiate, and yeah,
you
there's a
got
whole
rid of
lot
the
stuff
coach a
there.
couple years ago because he was the problem. Now it's just this roster can't do it. They've tried getting Harden, might not put him
Mixed
over the
result.
edge.
Yeah,
And then so where does that leave you? You're back to where you've started, and then like with Minnesota and Denver, changes have to happen. You can't run it back for a third time, not at this price tag.
right. And it is a very expensive team. They have like I kind of hinted at for the gone fishing, they have options. They can wiggle some room for themselves with like a Harden renegotiation where he opts out, but then he signs again for less because he's older, and Merrill and guys like that. You might be able to get them on a discount in the future. It's a team that's really, really good, no doubt about it. The Knicks are just playing so well. It's a scenario where the Knicks they remind me of the Pacers last year, who ironically eliminated New York in last year's conference finals, where New York's also was the home team going in. I feel like, because I felt like with the Pacers, they were a good team when they went into the playoffs last year. They just played better when they got into the playoffs. They started figuring out certain things that they could do well against their matchups, and they just took it up another notch. I feel like New York's done the same. They had that struggle early in the Hawks series, and then they just turned it on. And now they just absolutely, that was one of the most merciless sweeps I've ever seen against Philadelphia. Like, Philadelphia had some moments where they looked like they could actually take the lead, but they looked helpless. Like, the Philadelphia 76ers matchup wise looked helpless against the Knicks. It was so weird watching a Knicks team in total control, because I feel like today's generation isn't used to that. They're not used to seeing a Knicks team that dominates. I know it sounds crazy for older heads, but the Knicks don't usually look like this.
Well, as seems to be the theme, if you pay for it, you have to be in this. You can't have an expensive roster and then not dominate. And the way the repeater tax is, and as you
Yeah,
see with Boston, like you can't keep it up.
and they have a
So
little more wiggle room than Cleveland does. The thing is, though, Giannis is looming. The Giannis trade rumors are looming. So what do you do? Like, if you have a team with Karl Towns at the 5 and you go to the finals, regardless of how the result is, say they lose in the finals, you can talk yourself into saying, well, this is good enough. We don't need Giannis. Or do you just go for it and you trade away Karl Towns?
that's next season.
There's a lot there, but right now that team is cooking. This nucleus in New York is cooking. The Cleveland offense is awesome. I see high scoring games. I see games in the 130s. Like, I really do.
Well, I hope it's an exciting series. Hope it's good basketball, because that's all we can ask for. It's all we hope for. So, anywho, that wraps it up for us. So, for Andrew Riche, I'm Adam Murray. Have a good one.
Take care.